Superman the movie is a timeless classic. Christopher Reeve's performance as the character is, simply put, effortless, able to balance the goofy slapstick clumsiness of Clark Kent with Superman's easy, relaxed charm and commanding presence. He is the definitive version of the character on film. No one who's played the character since has been able to measure up. Yes, everyone. These aren't really unpopular opinions. At least not to those who know the core of Superman's character. And yet, since the announcement of James Gunn's new DCU, as well as all the casting rumors and news surrounding his new Superman film, a certain contingent of the fandom has been raging. At least until now, sort of. The trailer for James Gunn's Superman has dropped, and the reaction to it has been almost entirely positive. Most of the critics on YouTube are sold on this film. And I am one of them. Now, you probably don't know this about me, but I'm a huge comic nerd. More than that, I'm a big fan of the DC universe in general. I don't have a pull list anymore, and most of my reading tends to be prose these days rather than sequential art, but my love for characters like Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and The Flash has not died. Not yet, anyway. While I've personally been burned out on superhero media lately, having long since checked out of keeping up to date with the MCU, besides Deadpool and Wolverine, that was legitimately great. I wasn't exactly excited when I heard we were getting yet another Superman reboot, even with James Gunn at the helm, whose films I do generally tend to enjoy. Seriously, check out Super if you get the chance. It's such a weird movie.
Shut up, crime.
And yet, all the while, I had a weird vision in my head for how James Gunn could bring this character back to life on the big screen. And that vision, or dream, I guess you could say, was doing the exact opposite of what Zack Snyder did with the character. Now, look, before the Zack Snyder fanboys who will inevitably end up commenting on this video go raging in the comments, chill out. Restrain your eager fingers and listen for a minute. Because, simply put, this new Superman film looks fucking awesome. I might be huffing some hopium right now, and I'll preface this entire rant with the fact that I still do have some doubts. DC, no offense, but I've been wrong before about you, and I don't exactly trust you to get it right. As evidenced by the sharp drop in quality between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises.
Where's the trigger? Where is it? You won't give it to an ordinary citizen.
Yes, I hate that threequel so much. Let me further preface this forthcoming rant with another fact. I really enjoyed Man of Steel the first time I saw it. It's only with the passage of time becoming a fan of who Superman is in the comics, because I've always been more of a Batman guy, and the context of the slow train wreck that was the DCEU, and that film's general flaws, that I now feel differently. For all its flaws, Man of Steel was an effective science fiction fantasy action film, with some really cool set pieces and some really interesting concept design. The Giger influence in the Kryptonian designs is awesome, if sometimes really on the nose as to who those influences are. If there's one thing Zack is very good at, it's creating epic fight scenes and beatdowns. I mean, there's a whole contingent of Dragon Ball fans that only care about power scaling and how well a fight is animated. By the way, watch Dragon Ball Daima, you coward! Who aren't concerned with the deeper lore, story, or character dynamics. And hey, I get it. I love a good fight scene too. Hell, I'm a massive Dragon Ball fan, evidenced by the Goku statue back there and the entire manga, so the DBZ-style fights in Man of Steel were basically tailored to appeal to me. I understand why people like Man of Steel. I just don't think it's a very good Superman film. After my most recent revisit to Man of Steel, I felt like it's a film at odds with itself. It doesn't quite know what it wants to be. There are many messages about hope from Jor-El and Martha Kent, but the film and script generally acts like it's depressed about it the whole fucking time. Like it's the film embodiment of Marvin the Paranoid Android.
I think you ought to know I'm feeling very depressed.
I talk a lot on this channel about understanding tone and mood in storytelling, and I think objectively Man of Steel doesn't really understand the tone it's going for. It's very self-serious, and is trying to go for this grand sci-fi epic, but the bland color grading the DCEU has become pretty fucking infamous for, and the general dark tone of the score, despite how fucking good it is, keep us in the pits emotionally for a good portion of the film. Scratch that, for the whole fucking film. The whole thing. That awesome satin art direction for the Kryptonian designs I mentioned, which, now that I think about it, also remind me of French comic artist Mobius's work, and that makes them slightly more endearing to me. Remember when I described it as Giger-influenced? Do you recognize that name? H.R. Giger brought to life one of the most terrifying organisms in science fiction horror in 1979's Alien, a fucking masterpiece. If you're not new here, you've likely heard me gush about the space jockey scene in that film. Much of the ship designs look like this sequence, and it looks really visually stunning, although slightly less wet. But there's a problem with this aesthetic, at least when it comes to Superman. While these designs do look very alien, and I love H.R. Giger influenced stuff, the lack of color leaves one feeling like these designs don't necessarily belong in a movie about a guy who wears a bright, well, not bright, a blue suit sometimes, with red boots and a cape who flies around doing his best to save the world. Except here, and here, and here.
Whoop. Let me just go ahead and turn right around and watch all this destruction. Sure is. Ah!
It's a very nihilistic looking film, and the script is just as nihilistic, with some seriously clunky dialogue which I blame entirely on David Goyer.
You know, they say it's all downhill after the first kiss.
I'm pretty sure that only counts when you're kissing a human.
Even Superman himself doesn't smile much, and Henry, while very good at the physical stuff, feels a little wooden at times when he's being Clark. I don't know, I just don't feel like I believe him as Clark Kent. I don't know if it's a script issue or what, but I've felt like that in every film he's been Superman in. I just don't buy his performance. And look, I love a good nihilistic story. I'm a fan of the cyberpunk genre, for fuck's sake, but Superman? He's the least nihilistic character I can think of. Largely, I leave Man of Steel feeling pretty mediocre. I always enjoy the action, but I don't give two shits about the characters. Except for Ma Kent, I think she's pretty likable.
Go to hell.
But fuck this guy. Every time I finish the original Christopher Reeve Superman film, I always feel good. I could say the same thing about Superman the Animated Series, a seriously underrated take on the character that you should give a shot, as well as Justice League Unlimited and the rest of the DCAU. The new animated series, My Adventures with Superman, does this as well, and features a design very close to the one we're getting in this new film. While the show's not perfect, though that second season was on point, watch it. Almost every episode leaves me feeling good, with a big cheesy smile on my face. Hell, even Superman and Lois does this well, with Tyler Hoechlin cementing himself as one of the greatest actors to put on the cape. When asked who he thinks Superman is, I'm assuming, as I can't remember where I found this quote from, as it's almost Christmas and I'm fucking tired, James said, "I really love the idea of Superman. He's a big ol' galoot. He's a farm boy from Kansas who's very idealistic. His greatest weakness is that he'll never kill anybody. He doesn't want to hurt a living soul. I like that sort of innate goodness about Superman. It's his defining characteristic." The best Superman media understands who Superman is as a person. He's not just his powers. Superman is an uplifting character whose world is bright and colorful and strange. He's someone that will always do the right thing even when it's the unpopular choice. He always keeps his word. He'd jump in front of a kaiju foot to save a little girl in a microsecond. He's someone who feels it's just as important to rescue a cat out of a tree for a little girl as it is to stop a bank robbery or a radioactive man born from a petri dish.
Oh no.
And he usually does it while smiling. While Zack Snyder's Man of Steel understands some of the aspects of the character, starting off strong with Clark saving people while he's in drifter mode, the film feels largely like it's ashamed of him, and of Superman in general. Hell, the first time Lois is about to call him Superman, she's cut off like the film's freaking winking at us in the worst way.
What's the S stand for?
It's not an S.
here is an S. How about super?
Excuse me.
And also makes him feel super petty when he destroys some dickhead's truck. The colorful characters of the Daily Planet newsroom, Steve Lumbar, Cat Grant, Jimmy and Jenny Olsen, Perry White, and even Lois herself all feel like they're paper cutouts rather than characters. Especially Jimmy Olsen, who dies in his first appearance. Like, you wouldn't know this lady was Jimmy Olsen's sister unless you read that on a fucking wiki page. Or maybe the credits. I didn't check. Even Clark himself doesn't get a lot of strong characterization. We know he saves people and seems to act pretty quickly when someone's in danger, but we don't know why. Henry's Superman always feels so damn conflicted, and it gets old really fast. It might have something to do with the stupid-ass advice his father gave him before he got swallowed up in a tornado.
Oh, Clark, you have to keep this side of yourself a secret.
What was I supposed to do? Just let him die?
Maybe.
God, that is just one of the worst scenes. I never get the feeling that Superman enjoys what he's doing in these movies. The way it reads tonally, it feels more like a burden. Almost Jesus-like. And frankly, now that I've mentioned it, yes, Zack Snyder puts a lot of allusions to Christian mythology in Man of Steel, because he was raised as a Christian Scientist. To the point that Superman at one point makes the cross out of his body above the circle of the earth because apparently subtlety is dead. But Superman isn't Jesus. Saving people is not a burden. And if Superman is destined to save people, it's more in the Old Testament sort of way. Remember that Superman and Clark Kent were dreamt up by two Jewish boys who grew up during the Depression. In Superman's earliest days, he fought corrupt landlords and mining tycoons. He was like an FDR with a penchant for giving said mining tycoons a taste of their own medicine. He was a champion of the working class, an enemy of the elite. Speaking of being a champion, Clark Kent is a champion of truth. He's a journalist, dedicated to rooting out corruption and criminals who prey on innocent people. I know, totally unlike today's mainstream corporate-owned media, but hey, it's fiction. Zack Snyder's version of the character doesn't really check many of these boxes. Hell, Clark only becomes a reporter at the end of Man of Steel. For reasons? The pitch meeting on this film is on point, by the way.
So you have a Superman script for me? Yes, sir, I do. That sounds like fun. No.
Throughout Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, we see Superman act as a one-man wrecking crew, first punching a Kryptonian through a gas station, and then some kind of silo while screaming like an enraged hormonal teenager, while also probably killing anyone near that structure. He's not causing all of the damage, but he isn't exactly going out of his way to avoid it. At one point, Superman literally punches, I guess, Non into a train depot, and it explodes. So if anyone was still working there, these people are just dead, and we don't even get a reaction out of Superman. A disaster expert even estimated how bad the loss of life would have been had Metropolis been a real city, and the estimate was somewhere in the ballpark of 129,000 to 250,000 people who would have died, with property damage reaching up to $700 billion. The economic impact would have been about $2 trillion. Holy crap! And yet the story chooses to insert an awkward kiss in the midst of this destruction and some awful dialogue. It's very strange that Man of Steel seems to be more interested in fast-forwarding to an unearned Clark Kent reveal than even acknowledging the tragedy that just unfolded. That's not Superman. But enough about Zack Snyder. I'm not even going to touch Batman v Superman because we'd be here all fucking day. Contrast all of what I've brought up with the new Superman trailer. We open on Superman literally in the Yamcha pose, having just gotten his shit rocked. It's also really smart because one of the most common criticisms of Superman stories is that he's too powerful to be relatable. So showing him in literally the fetal position at the start of the story makes people feel as though they can relate to him, as if he's not all powerful. That's a good thing. He's breathing heavily. The score is very dark. At this point, I was starting to worry that we were learning the wrong lessons from the DCEU. We get cuts to Clark being a bumbling nerd, and all of this really works for me. I know some people don't like this haircut, but I'm fine with it. Superman should appeal to younger people, and this is a popular haircut with kids right now. But as we come in on a close-up of Superman's face, a rendition of John Williams' Superman theme kicks in, and we get shots from the newsroom. We see Lois Lane, and then Superman starts whistling. Something kicks up a shit ton of snow in the distance, and it's headed right for Superman. And Krypto the Superdog comes speeding to Superman's aid, bouncing around and licking his face like the bestest of boys, and Superman says, "Krypto, home. Take me home." And that's the only dialogue we get in this trailer, and honestly, I think it was a really smart choice. The guitar rendition of the theme transitions to an orchestral one, and it's fucking majestic. Seriously, I've watched the trailer like 15 fucking times. And immediately, we see Superman jump in to save a little girl from a kaiju foot slamming down into the street. And frankly, this is how you do slow-mo if you're gonna do it. We see a pissed off and young Lex Luthor watching Superman fly by his window. We see a crowd angry with Superman pelting him with a can of orange juice or something, and Superman generally feeling pretty down and out. And also check out the bowl haircut on Guy Gardner. Poor Nathan Fillion. I love it. We see a bunch of quick cuts to action pieces, some soldiers wearing green and purple suits. Gee, I wonder who they work for. As well as Superman fighting some guy in black in a football field. We see Clark and Lois embracing in a kiss, and then at the end of the trailer, embracing in a hug as Green Lantern is likely fighting off some big threat, and Superman is about to go jump into the action to help. But the most impactful thing in this trailer, other than saving the little girl, is this little boy calling to Superman as he raises a flag with the symbol of the House of L on it. Folks, that got me. I'll admit, with the score, the action, the bright colors, and trust me, we're going to talk a bit about color grading and cinematography here in a second, I got kind of choked up watching this. I'm really excited to see where this goes. James Gunn might be cooking with this one, especially if Creature Commandos is any indication. That show is on point right now. And yeah, we still have to wait and see. A good trailer doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get an amazing 10 out of 10 film. But I trust James Gunn. He's known for his irreverent humor and whatnot, sure, having told his fair of edgy, unfunny jokes over the years, but I think the James Gunn of today is better at managing tone and mood than a lot of people involved in the online discourse give him credit for. This trailer left me with a lot of hope. It left me feeling really good, with a big, cheesy smile on my face. Now, with that said, let's talk about the design of the film. There's a lot of classic comic book influence on this world. I can feel it in the suit designs for Luthor Corp's mercs. I can feel it in the Art Deco-inspired robot in the Fortress of Solitude, which looks very Donner-inspired, by the way. This is something that was done for Superman the Animated Series as well. Metropolis in STAS was very much designed to be a more futuristic-looking city, but still one that would fit in with the universe established in Batman the Animated Series, which has Art Deco everywhere. I'm all for this. It harkens back to older science fiction stories with colorful characters and larger-than-life, almost pop-arty designs, if that's even a word. Remember when I said that the Giger-influenced art direction for Krypton felt out of place? I really feel like the iconic crystal tech established in the Donner films and the echoes of it in many other iterations feels just as alien, but evokes a more ethereal tone or vibe. While it's possible that the Giger-Mobius-inspired world of Snyder's Krypton could have worked better if it had a bit more color, I think it still would have looked a bit too depressing overall for this kind of story. Remember that tone and mood can be influenced by everything in a story. If all you have are words on a page to convey that tone and mood, then your mission is to ensure they do not betray the tone and mood you're going for. The imagery, score, dialogue, and set pieces also contribute to the tone and mood of a film. And I think tonally, as I'm watching and rewatching the trailer for this thing, I'm thinking, this is Superman. And it's colorful. The blues are bright, and the reds pop, just as they should, though sometimes the cinematography doesn't look amazing, but we'll have to see how the film looks when it comes out, as they may still be tweaking things in post. I'm pretty much sold on this Superman suit, and I wasn't a fan of it when I first saw it. I'm pretty much of the opinion that Christopher Reeve's suit is the end-all be-all. That's the best Superman suit we've ever gotten on screen. Superman has godlike powers. He doesn't need armor or any of this other crap. He can just wear pajamas and he's fine. Though it does look kind of baggy at times, I'm not hating that. It looks great in motion, and Gunn did say he was taking inspiration from Superman for All Seasons, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Kingdom Come, and most importantly, All-Star Superman, one of the greatest Superman comics, hands down. If you haven't read it, do yourself a favor and pick this thing up. I think there's a box set of all the comics that inspired the film coming at some point. Oh, and the All-Star Superman suit was baggy as well, so we see where he's going with that. Would the suit look a bit better in still shots if it were more form-fitting? Yeah, probably, I don't know. But I'm fine with it as long as we get a Superman that isn't afraid to crack a smile. And speaking of that is something that feels like it's missing from most of the promo material so far. We haven't seen David Cornsweat's Superman smile yet. Doesn't have me worried yet, because I think there's been plenty of that in set photos that I will not show here. But, I would like to see Superman in one of these clips give us a cheesy smile. Or at the very least, a Reeve-style wry grin. Christopher Reeve, his Superman, was so relaxed and charming, and I feel like that's something that's been missing from the character on screen. Remember, people, Superman is not Goku. Wait, Goku would be smiling as he's about to throw down because he's a big old lovable goofball too, but in a different way. Remember, people, he's not Vegeta. He's not the type of person to be scowling at every villain he comes into contact with. Sure, if they're hurting innocent people, he ain't exactly going to be happy, but Superman should have this calming presence when he's on screen. In my opinion, at least. It's okay to make him doubt himself or even feel terrible after a big defeat like we are seeing with the angry mob in the trailer, but eventually we need to see him crack a smile. We need to feel that he doesn't just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but also because he enjoys it. If Son Goku's central characteristic in Dragon Ball is that he's a naive, lovable goofball who loves to fight strong guys, then Superman is a lovable goofball who loves to save people. If Batman is a detective, Superman is a fireman. That's who he is. And if you get that right, a lot of the rest will fall into place. Even Christopher Reeve's worst outings as Superman still had the saving grace that he always gave his performance his all. He was always a good Superman, no matter how awful the script was. And I'm one of those people who doesn't mind Superman 3. It's a batshit insane Golden Age style tale, but it's dumb and fun. Maybe give it a rewatch sometime after having a few drinks. You might have a good time. So, while I do have my doubts about this new Superman and the new DCU in general, I feel like we might finally be getting the on-screen equivalent to the animated series, given what we've seen so far and the fact that Gunn said it was one of his influences. And really, if that's the case, if this new universe is inspired by the DCAU, then there's a strong chance it'll be good. I just hope that Superman believes in Santa Claus in this universe, and that his parents wrap his presents in lead.
This little guy was crazy for Christmas. We used to wrap his presents in lead foil so he couldn't peek.
You mean Santa wrapped them?
Oh, of course, dear.
The DCAU is still regarded by many as being the best adaptation of these characters, starting with Batman the Animated Series and leading into Superman the Animated Series. It's maintained a strong legacy, featuring writing from some of the most legendary authors at DC Comics, including Paul Dini, who is by far one of my personal favorites, who wrote the good Arkham games too, by the way. If you haven't seen the DCAU, then I suggest you do, and while you're at it, imagine how these worlds could be realized in James Gunn's DCU on the big screen. And if you're a fan of Zack Snyder's DCEU and Superman, I get it. But please, do yourself a favor and give this a chance. Zack's universe isn't coming back, and there is no rivalry between these filmmakers. The only rivalry is from a small contingent of so-called fans who don't even seem to like the character of Superman in the first place. Trust me when I say you can like two things at once. It's fine. No one is going to judge you for that. No one that matters, anyway. And if the film ends up not being to your taste, that's fine too. You're allowed to have an opinion. As someone who makes part of his living critiquing and sometimes raging at stories from every medium, it's okay to feel a range of emotions when discussing media. The problem is when we actively insult those who offer us their perspective, those who don't want you to say anything negative about the thing they love so dearly. If you're one of those people, I just urge you to sit back and think before you press enter on your comments. Yes, you. I mean you. And this doesn't just go for Superman, but any movie, any story in any medium. That said, I'm very excited for this film, and I hope you are too. Let me know what you think in the comments as you deploy your likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not, and ring that bell, and share this video with someone who loves discussing media. I also have a Patreon where you can help support this channel with a variety of different rewards, including early videos. I'm Malikyte, and I'll see you next time, Space Cowboy.